Welcome to Cape Town, the legislative capital of South Africa. It is the country's oldest city and the seat of the Parliament of South Africa. It is the country's second largest city, after Johannesburg, and the largest in the Western Cape. The city is part of the City of Cape Town Metropolitan Municipality. Kindly subscribe to this channel and share this video to your friends and families. The city is known for its harbor, its natural setting in the Cape Floristic region, and for landmarks such as Table Mountain and Cape Point. In 2014, Cape Town was named the best place in the world to visit by the New York Times and similarly by the Daily Telegraph in 2016. Located on the shore of Table Bay, the City Bowl area of Cape Town is the oldest urban area in the Western Cape, with a significant cultural heritage. It was founded by the Dutch East India Company, VOC, as a supply station for Dutch ships sailing to East Africa, India, and the Far East. Jan van Riebeek's arrival on April 6, 1652 established the VOC Cape Colony, the first permanent European settlement in South Africa. Cape Town outgrew its original purpose as the first European outpost at the Castle of Good Hope, becoming the economic and cultural hub of the Cape Colony. Until the Witwatersrand Gold Rush and the development of Johannesburg, Cape Town was the largest city in southern Africa. The metropolitan area has a long coastline on the Atlantic Ocean, which includes False Bay, and extends to the Hottentots Holland Mountains to the east. The Table Mountain National Park is within the city boundaries, and there are several other nature reserves and marine protected areas within and adjacent to the city, protecting the diverse terrestrial and marine natural environment. The earliest known remnants of human occupation in the region were found at Piers Cave in Fish Hook and have been dated to between 15,000 and 12,000 years old. Little is known of the history of the region's first residents, since there is no written history from the area before it was first mentioned by Portuguese explorer Bartolomeu Dias. Dias, the first European to reach the area, arrived in 1488 and named it Cape of Storms, Cabo das Tormentas. It was later renamed by John II of Portugal as Cape of Good Hope, Cabo de Boa Esperança, because of the great optimism engendered by the opening of a sea route to the Indian subcontinent and East Indies. In 1497, Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama recorded a sighting of the Cape of Good Hope. In 1510, at the Battle of Salt River, the Portuguese Admiral Francisco de Almeida and 64 of his men were killed and his party was defeated by the Uriqua, Goring Haikwa, in Dutch approximate spelling. Using specially trained cattle, the Uriqua were one of the so-called Coco clans who inhabited the area. In the late 16th century French, Danish, Dutch and English, but mainly Portuguese, ships regularly continued to stop over in Table Bay en route to the Indies. They traded tobacco, copper, and iron with the Coco clans of the region in exchange for fresh meat and other essential traveling provisions. In 1652, Jan van Riebeek and other employees of the United East India Company, Dutch, Verenigd Oostindische Company, VOC, were sent to the Cape Colony to establish a way station for ships traveling to the Dutch East Indies, and the Fort de Goede Hoop, later replaced by the Castle of Good Hope. The settlement grew slowly during this period, as it was hard to find adequate labor. This labor shortage prompted the local authorities to import enslaved people from Indonesia and Madagascar. Many of these people are ancestors of modern-day Cape-colored communities. Under Van Riebeek and his successors, as VOC commanders and later governors at the Cape, a wide range of agricultural plants were introduced to the Cape. Some of these, including grapes, cereals, ground nuts, potatoes, apples and citrus, had a large and lasting influence on the societies and economies of the region. With the Dutch Republic being transformed into revolutionary France's vassal Batavian Republic, Great Britain moved to take control of Dutch colonies, including the colonial possessions of the VOC. Britain captured Cape Town in 1795, but it was returned to the Dutch by treaty in 1803. British forces occupied the Cape again in 1806 following the Battle of Blauberg, when the successor state to the Batavian Republic, the Kingdom of Holland, allied with France during the Napoleonic Wars. In the Anglo-Dutch Treaty of 1814, Cape Town was permanently ceded to the United Kingdom. It became the capital of the newly formed Cape Colony, whose territory expanded very substantially through the 1800s. With expansion came calls for greater independence from the UK, with the Cape attaining its own parliament, 1854, and a locally accountable Prime Minister, 1872. Suffrage was established according to the non-racial Cape qualified franchise. During the 1850s and 1860s, additional plant species were introduced from Australia by the British authorities. Notably, roicrans was introduced to stabilize the sand of the Cape Flats to allow for a road connecting the peninsula with the rest of the African continent, and eucalyptus was used to drain marshes. In 1859, the first railway line was built by the Cape Government Railways, and a system of railways rapidly expanded in the 1870s. The discovery of diamonds in Griqualand West in 1867, and the Witwatersrand Gold Rush in 1886, prompted a flood of immigration into South Africa. In 1895, the city's first public power station, the Graf Electric Lighting Works, was opened. Conflicts between the Boer republics in the interior and the British colonial government resulted in the Second Boer War of 1899 to 1902. Britain's victory in this war led to the formation of a united South Africa. From 1891 to 1901, the city's population more than doubled from 67,000 to 171,000. As the 19th century came to an end, the economic and political dominance of Cape Town in the Southern Africa region during the 19th century started to give way to the dominance of Johannesburg and Pretoria in the 20th century. In 1910, Britain established the Union of South Africa, which unified the Cape Colony with the two defeated Boer republics and the British colony of Natal. Cape Town became the legislative capital of the Union, and later of the Republic of South Africa. By the time of the 1936 census, Johannesburg had overtaken Cape Town as the largest city in the country. In 1945, the expansion of the Cape Town foreshore was completed, adding an additional 194 hectares, 480 acres, to the City Bowl area to the city center. Prior to the mid-20th century, Cape Town was one of the most racially integrated cities in South Africa. In the 1948 national elections, the National Party won on a platform of apartheid, racial segregation, under the slogan of Swart Gevaar, Afrikaans for Black Danger. This led to the erosion and eventual abolition of the Cape's multiracial franchise. In 1950, the apartheid government first introduced the Group Areas Act, which classified and segregated urban areas according to race. Formerly multiracial suburbs of Cape Town were either purged of residents deemed unlawful by apartheid legislation, or demolished. The most infamous example of this in Cape Town was the suburb of District 6. After it was declared a whites-only area in 1965, all housing there was demolished and over 60,000 residents were forcibly removed. Many of these residents were relocated to the Cape Flats. The earliest of the Cape Flats forced removals saw the expulsion of black South Africans to the Langa, Cape Town's first and oldest township, in line with the 1923 Native Urban Areas Act. Under apartheid, the Cape was considered a colored labor preference area, to the exclusion of Bantus, i.e. black Africans. The implementation of this policy was widely opposed by trade unions, civil society, and opposition parties. It is notable that this policy was not advocated for by any colored political group, and its implementation was a unilateral decision by the apartheid government. During the student-led Soweto uprising of June 1976, school students from Langa, Gugulethu, and Nyanga in Cape Town reacted to the news of the protests against Bantu education by organizing gatherings and marches of their own. A number of school buildings were burnt down, and the protest action was met with forceful resistance from the police. Cape Town has been home to many leaders of the anti-apartheid movement. In Table Bay, 10 kilometers 6 miles from the city is Robben Island. This penitentiary island was the site of a maximum security prison where many famous apartheid-era political prisoners served long prison sentences. Famous prisoners include activist, lawyer, and future President Nelson Mandela, who served 18 of his 27 years of imprisonment on the island, as well as 2 other future presidents, Kgalema Motlanthe and Jacob Zuma. Kindly subscribe to this channel and share this video with your friends and families. In one of the most famous moments marking the end of apartheid, Nelson Mandela made his first public speech since his imprisonment, from the balcony of Cape Town City Hall, hours after being released on February 11, 1990. His speech heralded the beginning of a new era for the country. The first democratic election was held 4 years later, on April 27, 1994. Nobel Square in the Victoria and Alfred waterfront features statues of South Africa's 4 Nobel Peace Prize winners, Albert Luthuli, Desmond Tutu, F.W. de Klerk, and Nelson Mandela. Cape Town faced a severe water shortage from 2015 to 2018. Since the 2010s, Cape Town and the wider Western Cape Province have seen the rise of a small secessionist movement. Support for parties, which have formally adopted Cape independence, was around 5% in the 2021 municipal elections. Cape Town is located at latitude 33.55 degrees south, approximately the same as Sydney and Buenos Aires and equivalent to Casablanca and Los Angeles in the